don't have the galaxy brain that you have, Luke. But so so isn't aren't there times when just simple common sense should just win the day easily without any fuss? And if you have an institute of virology in the middle of a city and this strange virus appears in the exact same city where there's an institute of virology that has most likely escaped, you know, isn't this a time when common sense is just the correct thing to follow?
Maybe, but at the same time, there was a big wet market nearby, and a lot of bad viruses have emerged out of things like wet markets. In fact, every major pandemic and devastating virus that we've had for the past 100 years most likely has come from China, and very likely come from things like wet markets. So that's why I'm kind of undecided.
Yeah, fair enough, but I don't know. But okay, even if it turns out that it didn't escape from a lab, isn't it a bit unfair just to say people that believe that it did are conspiracy theorists when there's just such a plausible who done it right before your eyes, and yet the
Yes.
burden of proof really belongs to the people that say that it isn't or hasn't escaped from the lab.
Well, I wouldn't say the burden of proof primarily falls on either, but I would say that dismissing people making the case for lab leak and the kind of ad hominem attacks and calling them grifters and conspiracy theorists, I don't agree with that.
Okay, fair enough. But then, all right, so part two, follow the money. Isn't that the ancient principle of journalism?
Yes.
And it always seems as though those with the most to lose, and I mean financially, forget about prestige and all those other things,
Hmm.
just plain old dollars and cents, those with the most to lose have the most invested interest in promoting the thesis that continues their funding, right?
Yes.
And isn't it clear and you outlined this perfectly, that they can always use their expertise as a shibboleth to hide behind the fact that they're just simply trying to keep that income coming so they don't have to live in a neighborhood filled with super predators,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, like every group wants to protect its expertise and be effective and circle the wagons. And so yeah, there are all sorts of professional reasons why virologists would have contempt for the lab leak hypothesis. Like it would be really
Mm,
bad for them. Like it would be if you
mm.
were a virologist and it came out that the pandemic came from a lab leak. I mean, your status would plunge. Like some people would be spat on.
I mean, I think 5 years from now, this is just going to be a joke that it was even like an opposite case would have been considered, you know, a non-lab leak theory would have even been considered. And the same thing goes for global warming. It's this exact same thing, Science is funded by national science grants, or was it
Yeah, from the
but
from the government. Yeah, largely
from the
from the
government,
government.
right? And there's so many projects tied to this global warming, hypothesis that, they've circled the wagons around this. And then this circling of the wagons is in itself seen as evidence, the
Yes.
famous 97%, you're threatening the process of science itself. You're
Yeah.
not, you're threatening, the funding base of science. I don't know. It just seems really terrible that, I put in the comment in the chat, if something is incredibly small or incredibly big, that your average person can't apply their common sense to it, you can grift on it. If you
Yeah,
need a special expertise to understand this phenomenon, it just opens the door to, grifting.
it does, but I'm also skeptical of how powerful the emotions that are developed when I think of the possibility that this was a lab leak. I mean, it feels so good. It feels so good, and it also feels so good that to think that global warming is a hoax and a conspiracy. Like it would just justify my rage at all these categories of people who part of me think are playing a game and have rigged the game and have run a giant con in their own best interests and against the public interest. Like, I just start getting filled with rage as I think about it.
So basically, what you've done is you've over inoculated yourself. Pardon the vaccine metaphor. You've over inoculated yourself against the possibility of there ever being a conspiracy.
No,
right?
I just want to be aware of the emotional tug that one side has for me. Like, I get no emotional payoff if COVID turns out to have natural origins. Right? That does nothing for me emotionally. It does nothing for my show. It does nothing for my worldview. It does nothing for me. On the other hand, if COVID was from a lab leak, I could build 500 shows on that. It's just so appealing to me.
And your fear of success, your under earning kicks in. You're saying, there's no way I'm going there. I don't want a big successful show, so I'm not going to go there.
No, I just remember the number of women that I inserted myself inside of when that really probably wasn't in either their best interests or my own. And like, I'm just dying to insert myself inside the lab leak hypothesis and the, global warming is a hoax hypothesis. Like, it feels so good. Just like, this woman with E-cup breasts, I just, couldn't wait to take her to bed, but it wasn't necessarily in my best interest or hers. It felt so good. Felt so good.
I like how you return to the essentials.
Yeah.
Now, what if COVID emerged in a place that didn't have an Institute of Virology in China?
Yeah, if it was just natural origins, then I get no emotional payoff. I get no orgasm out of that. It does nothing for me. I don't build shows. I don't build blog posts. I don't build a philosophy of life. I don't develop principles for decoding reality. Like, I get nothing. I am just left empty, but not empty in a good way.
You're depleted of essence.
I am depleted of essence, but not with the pleasure that usually comes with being depleted of essence. I am just, it's like this morning, I got up and I was working on my shorts. So I edited and arranged for about 25 different shorts to be. I've got now 4 YouTube channels. Like, my viewership is up more than 100 times overall because I've got 4 YouTube channels. I'm making all these shorts, but I forgot to take my Adderall. So I just felt like crap. I thought, here I am, this great thinker, this galaxy mind, and I'm just grinding out this, these shorts for people who want, 30-second sound bites. I should be spending my cognitive resources on creating 3-hour shows for people who want, the true, depth that I can bring to a topic. And instead, I'm cranking out these 30-second and 2-minute shorts, and it just felt so icky. But if I'd taken my Adderall, I would have been like, oh, this is great. Think about the hundreds, thousands of people who will now be exposed to my ideas.
These shorts, you're trying to whet the appetite for the deeper Fortean analysis.
Yeah, but I'm appealing to the lowest common denominator, like people who want 30-second sound bites. But it's cool that, like, the number of comments I get to read now is up 100 times. Number of views is up way over 100 times. Subscribers are going up. It's
now, do you offer
exciting.
links to your main channel?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay.
But it isn't. Okay. I've got 11 people watching right now on YouTube, so apparently isn't affecting the audience for my in-depth live streams as yet.
Oh, well, you better take another Adderall then.
Well, I took my last one. I took, when I remembered I hadn't taken an Adderall, so I took one at 9:40 this morning. Then I took my second one at 2 o'clock. So it's now 6:41. So Adderall is supposed to last about 4 hours. So I'm now 40 minutes past the end of the Adderall boost. But I feel like I'm still riding on it. It might just be, I might just be fooling myself. But thank God. Oh, and yeah, the chat says, say nothing of flooding subscribers with tease notifications. Yeah, that's not good. And so I've largely stopped adding the shorts to my 2 main channels and instead developing shorts on 2 other channels. But occasionally, like, I'll get a short and I think, oh, this is good. I'll post it with a link to the main show. And then the short might get, 5,000 views, but, almost nobody clicks over to the main show.
All right, tell me this.